Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do our Invisible Cities announcement for June. So I will link the original announcement that we did for Invisible Cities in the description below in case you are new to the project, but the basic gist is that we explore 2 countries of the world per month. To participate, you basically read a book either from the country or about the country, but you can also participate in other ways like watching movies from the country or watching documentaries about it, cooking food, listening to music, just basically exploring the country. The 2 countries that we have selected for June are Qatar and the Republic of Congo. So Qatar is one of those countries that is very difficult to find books from the country itself, and so I have opted for a book about the country. So the one that I am thinking of picking up is called Qatar Small State Big Politics by Mehran Kamrava, and this is actually an Iranian author. Iranian born anyway. I think the author is set in or lives in the US at the moment. But this is a non-fiction book about Qatar and the fact that it is a tiny nation but with a lot of influence in various contexts, various sort of platforms, and sort of the reason behind that, as well as talking about the relation between Qatar and the neighboring countries and Qatar and the rest of the world. So this is the description of the book. The Persian Gulf state of Qatar has fewer than 2 million inhabitants, virtually no potable water, and has been an independent nation only since 1971. Yet its enormous oil and gas wealth has permitted the ruling of Al Thani family to exert a disproportionately large influence on regional and even international politics. Qatar is, as Mehran Kamrava explains in his knowledgeable and incisive account of the emirate, a tiny giant. Although severely lacking in most measures of state power, it is highly influential in diplomatic, cultural, and economic spheres. So it's basically a nonfiction. Seems like it's kind of information heavy and leaning towards the politics of the topic, but I thought it sounded really interesting and definitely like something that I could learn some new things. So that is one that I'm looking at picking up, that I might buy or see if my university library has it. And then another thing that I discovered as I was looking for books on Qatar is a podcast that is run by a woman called, let's see, Amal Al-Malki, and she seems to be very involved in sort of feminist topics related to Qatar and the Arab countries in general. So this podcast is several different episodes, of course, and they all touch on different topics, and she talks with different women. But I thought it might be an interesting way to sort of supplement my both for this particular country because she is from Qatar, but also in general I was interested in this podcast. It sounded like it could be very interesting. So just as some examples of the episode titles, you get a sort of sense of what they are about. So the first one is the persistent stereotypical images of Arab women in the West, women in conflict zones. The personal is political, so it sounds like it's just sort of talking about different countries, different contexts, and on different topics. And definitely sounds like something that is worth checking out. So I will link the podcast website in the description as well if you are also curious about it. And then, as I said, we have the other country is Republic of Congo. I have 2 books that I have my eye on to potentially read. And the first one is called Mr. Fix-It by Richard Mutu, translated by Bienvenu and Sara Sene, and published by Deep Vellum. Mbamba's name means mender in Lingala, but everything in the Congolese 20-something's life seems to be falling apart. In the chaotic megacity of Kinshasa, the educated but unemployed young man must navigate the ever-widening distance between his tradition and modernity, from the payment of his fiancée's exorbitant dowry to the unexpected sexual confession of his best friend, as he struggles with the responsibility and flirts with temptation. First novel to be translated into English from Lingala, Mr. Fixit introduces major new talent Richard Ali Mutu, who leads a new generation of writers whose work portrays the everyday realities of Congolese life, with a bold, intense style associated with the country's music and fashion. It sounds like it would be sort of a coming-of-age type story with a different backdrop than what I'm used to. Then the other one that I have my eye on for Congo is Black Moses by Alain Mabanckou, and this was translated by Helen Stevenson from the French. I feel like this book or this author has been on the Booker International in some previous year. I recognize something about his name in his books, and I have a suspicion that that is the case, but correct me if I'm wrong. But both this and his other books sounded really interesting, so I'd definitely be curious to check this out if I have time. Black Moses, the protagonist of this novel set in the 70s and 80s, was raised in the orphanage in Congo-Brazzaville during a time of political upheaval. He and his best friend Bonaventure weather the changes the orphanage goes through as the director tries to align himself with the current political regime. Black Moses eventually runs away from the orphanage that twins, Songi Songi and Tala Tala to Point Noir, where he becomes part of their gang. Blah blah blah. Slowly his world becomes a jumble of past and present as he attempts to define his future. This sounds like it's a historical fiction novel that has a lot of the political context to it, which is always really valuable with discovering new countries that you haven't read anything about. I think it is always helpful to have that fictional entry to that kind of history. So those are the books and the countries that I wanted to talk about today. Let me know if you have any recommendations for Qatar or the Republic of Congo for me, either in terms of books or movies. If you have anything you are thinking of picking up for these two countries in June, I would be very interested to hear about that as well. And your general Invisible Cities reading and music watching, music listening and movie watching, I'd be interested about that as well. So that was all I wanted to say today. I hope you're doing well and you're taking care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.